leads me to another question. You guys are not going to have a kid.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, how do you, like, take that on? Like, do you... you're parenting differently again.
Yeah, I don't think we know the answer to that completely yet. I think we're, like, still figuring that out and still processing that. I kind of think it's cool that we'll have, more than likely, as long as all goes well, we'll have adopted the kids before having our own biological kid. I think that's going to be a cool dynamic because most of the time it's the other way around.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm kind of excited for that, to have, like, our baby grow up with them as their siblings, and you know, she won't know anything different than that. So I'm, like, really excited about that. But I don't know necessarily how we're going to navigate it or, like, what we're going to do. It'll be interesting.
I think you'll be well prepared, and I think that's what I was going to touch on was, you know, in a biological situation, you have the baby, you come home with a newborn, you go through all of those steps, and it teaches you. You can't yell at a newborn. I mean, like, you can't do that. You can, but I'm just saying.
It won't get you anywhere.
They're just going to scream out. Yeah. But, you know, I think as a mom, that was one of my big things was, like, you've been able to go through all these processes, and when you have an 18-month-old dropped off at your doorstep, and you have to start parenting from 18 months that they've already had this history of not being held, or, you know, all of those things that happen to some of our kids, you know, I think that dynamic will be a little different because you had to parent from 18 months. You had to parent when they're walking, they're talking, they're doing all those things, and you didn't have the chance to parent when she was a newborn. And so I think that as a foster parent, like, stepping into that role, whether they're 18 months or 5 or 14, is a completely different aspect to parenting. And so I think you guys will be well prepared for your baby. And it'll be a fun journey, I think, to see from beginning to end. And I just think that it's amazing that at your young ages and so young in your marriage that you just stepped fully into, like, you know, the process 100% and have been there, you know, and these kids have an opportunity that they didn't have before.
Would you recommend it to someone your age?
I would recommend it with caution. I don't think I would ever go up to somebody our age and be like, you need to foster right now. I don't think I would do that because I think in our situation it's just unique. Just how the circumstances, how everything happened. It's not necessarily something that we could plan it. Do I think that other couples our age can do it? Yes, absolutely. But I think you have to be prepared and you have to know what you're getting yourself into.
Right.
Because if you go in thinking that it's going to be a fairy tale and you're just building a beautiful, wonderful family, like, you're going to be let down and you're probably not going to last. Just in reality, because it is hard. So I would say proceed with caution. I would say
with a big caution.
Yes, don't, like, set yourself up with these big expectations because they're not going to get met. That's just not what this is about.
It's not about a fairy tale. It's about caring for kids with trauma. It's about caring for kids who need help.
And a lot of times that kind of, like, messes up your life in a sense, you know.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
And you gotta be ready for it. I think a big part of that's been helpful for us is we knew that, we didn't know what we were getting into, but we still knew that coming into it. So being able to have a support system, both with our family, we were able to quickly get connected with Lake Sumter families and just had resources at our fingertips. That was a huge thing for us. In our church too. It's been a big way that we've been able to do what we do is because of their support. It's been a big thing.
Just the people around us. We couldn't do it on our own at all.
Yeah.
At all.
If you think you can, you're nuts.
I think parenting period takes
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
It does. Do you guys plan on continuing to foster after you adopt and have your own baby?
We do at this time. We're just kind of, like, writing it out however the Lord leads and however our family leads. I think we'll just kind of see how it goes, especially as the kids grow up.
It's been an interesting dynamic because we've fostered all the way from, we fostered 18 months all the way up to 17 years old.
Which we don't recommend for people our age. Just saying.
So, but
it's like having a roommate. Right?
Oh yeah, and she's like, I'm not calling you mom and dad. And I'm like, please don't. Like, no, thank you.
But it's, I definitely think, especially at this point, we're planning on it, for sure. And we know there's always a need, and it's something that we love. We also know it's hard, so we look at both sides, but definitely do plan on fostering still.
I think parenting in any way requires sacrifice.
Yeah.
And especially with children that are, I'm going to say the word demanding. They have a lot more needs, and it requires more of your time. You invest more in the children that have not had. So and what do you think has been the hardest thing to give up? Like you have to sacrifice some things. You can't balance it all. I mean, you've seen the chart where it's like you can have sleep, good grades, or social life. Which one do you want to give up? What's been the hardest thing to sacrifice? I mean, you're just starting a marriage. Like, what's been the hardest thing to give up?
I think the hardest thing to give up has probably just been like time. There are things that just the reality of where we're at in life, like we've missed out on, like going out with friends or like going on trips for that doesn't work for us. That's just not where we're at. And I think that's something we struggled with at the beginning, like giving up that, because I mean, before we had kids, we could go do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. We wanted to plan a spontaneous weekend trip. We just did it. With kids, that's different. I think, at first that was something that was really hard to navigate, because it was like, in a way, like we felt we were giving up a lot of like our young life, so to speak, I guess. I don't know how to say that. But so I think that was probably the most challenging thing to navigate, because, it is different. And even like our friends who are starting to have kids, it's still so different for them because they have like one baby and we've got like 2.5. And so it's just like, it's just different. And then, like you said, demanding kids who have a lot of needs and a lot of issues, maybe if they were normal kids, then we could do those things. But like with our kids, it takes a lot of planning and a lot of preparation just because of their needs. Yeah. So I would say that's probably been the hardest thing. And we have some friends that we've lost because they just don't get it. They don't get why we can't drop everything and hang out with them, or why we can't always go out over to their house, or we can't always go out. Like, we don't go out on the weekends or late at night. Like, that's just not real. It's not really our thing, and we have kids, and so it's just been interesting.
Yeah, I'd say in the beginning, sleep was a big thing.
That's true. That's true.
It's just a big.
I'm with you, Mike.
Yeah,
sleep deprivation is real.
Cranky.
Yeah.
So I honestly just learned to deal with. I don't get 8 hours of sleep anymore. It's just normal.
It gets better, but you're having a newborn, so it probably won't get better for a little bit.
We're gonna go back.
That's been the cool thing. It's like I've learned to deal with it. Plus, we've learned how to better deal with late nights and the situations that do come up to better be able to get better sleep habits. So that's been cool to learn. When she was 18 months crying every night, we've got to the point where it's not every night anymore, and it's not 2 hours long. So that's a win. That's a huge win. And so but it's been cool. I wouldn't say that's my biggest thing now. I don't know, probably our social life.
Yeah, which I think like now we've just adapted, and it is what it is. And like the people and friends that are in our life, like they get our life, and and if they don't, like they usually just fade off, because we don't really have space for that right now. Like we got a lot to worry about.
There's no time to worry about it.
Exactly. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. Like, I love you and all, but this is just my life, and this is who we are, and it's who we're gonna be.
Now, I heard a rumor that there's a really great base of younger foster parents out in Lake Sumter that just magically make their appearance at times. Have you guys found that?
No, we haven't.
So you guys have just kind of, everybody in your friend group is just kind of older and has kids and is fostering?
A lot of our friends, most of our friends actually are like, which we don't have a ton of friends just because life and who we are. They're actually, a lot of them are young and married, no kids, or are just having kids or just starting that. Okay. So we don't really have a ton of friends that are like older and married with kids. It's just a lot of our friends from college and stuff have just stuck around and are just starting their families. It's kind of where we're at now.
Mm-hmm. Super cool. Love that.
Yeah.
Super cool. You got another question?
I mean, I could talk for hours. This is why we make a good duo.
So, those moments at night, 2 a.m., baby's screaming. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing one of you gets up, not the other one, because you're like, I've got to make it through tomorrow morning. And they can be really isolating.
Yeah.
You're alone with your thoughts and a screaming baby, which means you're just alone with your thoughts. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What have you learned about yourself in this journey? It's been 2 years now, almost. Right at?
We're getting there.
What have you learned about yourself that you're proud of? Let's start with that one.
That we're proud of. I would say I don't know. I guess I'm just proud of myself for managing it, I guess, if that makes sense. I'm just like, I'm a very like emotional person, and I feel everything deeply, and I'm very up and down. But like, you know, when you have kids, you have to stay pretty consistent. And especially like with those late nights and everything, I think just learning how to manage the chaos has definitely been a learning curve. So I would say like I'm really proud that I'm getting there. I'm not perfect, but I'm proud that I'm able to do it. So
yeah, I would say for me, just learning to be a little bit more, I guess. It might sound a little bad, but sympathetic. I'm the opposite of Alyssa. I'm very straightforward. These are the facts. This is how things go. And when they don't go that way, we gotta fix it. There has to be don't get caught up in emotions. We just gotta fix it, get it done. So I don't necessarily all the time sympathize with people well because of that. But through fostering especially, I've learned a lot about, just like I was talking about earlier, just recognizing the trauma that they've endured, and it's caused me to become more sympathetic. It's been something that's been a huge growing thing. So those late nights are not just cut and dry. You should be asleep right now. Yeah. You're not asleep because of this, and I sympathize with that, and I will mourn with you over that. I'll cry with you over that. And I will help you in whatever way I can to ensure that you get a restful night. That's been one of the biggest growing things for me. Something I'm super proud to be able to just be able to get to the point, because I didn't think I ever would. I've been known to be heartless.
And he's like a softie now. It's really bad.
I was going to say, your comment about crying with a kid,
it's powerful.
There's not many guys that are going to admit that. Mm-hmm. And two, that I don't think there's many, and maybe I'm wrong. People can correct me if you're arguing with this. Put it in the comments. But I don't think there's that can take themselves emotionally to that place of vulnerability, because to be open to walk yourself through what that kid has been through, and be like, all right, I'm gonna experience. I want to, as much as I can, experience this with them. Oh, it's hard.
It's very hard. It's upsetting. I've been in those moments of rage and honest anger, just because of what has happened to them. It shouldn't happen. It makes me angry. I remember even those nights, there was those thoughts as well. Yeah. So that's why I've learned to be sympathetic, is because of those things.
I think it's incredible to walk that journey and just be able to have that moment with your child now, that you can, I promise you one day she's going to turn to you, you're going to be everything to her because of those moments where you were that guy that she needed you to be. And I think that's so important. You know, I always laugh because I think everybody underestimates parenting. I went into it definitely underestimating parenting, and I had a colicky, cryy daughter who didn't come from trauma, but as I'm emotional as well, and I'm a perfectionist, so everything was fixing, and I know that pain for a kid that you can't fix that for is difficult. I mean, I can remember crying. My husband worked nights, and I literally was a single mom for the first 6 months of her life, and that was tough. So like, to be able to step into that role, to recognize the anger, but to recognize that, and I think that's the really cool shift that I've seen in parenting, especially people your age, my age, is to sympathize with the kid instead of just you are here to be seen and not heard, or those old adages of we're gonna step in with our kids now versus just raising our kids.
Absolutely.
I think hearing them and listening to them is so vastly important. And truthfully, especially in the foster and adoption community, like, hearing them is probably the most important thing. Understanding what they're going through, understanding and sympathizing with. I'm sorry. I have, since the weather changed, I have not been able to get my allergies under control, so I apologize. It's terrible. But I just think that that's really poignant that you said that, because I think even as a mom my child doesn't have trauma, I sat with my daughter and rocked her the same way and just went, I don't know how to fix it, but I promise you tomorrow will be a better day, because I had to. My son, the complete opposite. My son was, I take a bottle, I fall asleep, I'm good, never had a problem. Then he got to a toddler, and it was a completely different toddler than my daughter. So, I just think that was very powerful. It's not podcast worthy, but, that was you need to make sure that was a powerful statement.
Power move. Power statement. We're gonna bold that one.
Just put like angel wings on him for a moment.
We'll see what the special.
Listen, I've been editing videos all week. I got you.
Right? Oh my goodness. So I come from a similar situation as you. I was the oldest child in this foster family, and my parents also kind of really stepped into the realm of fostering. We're like, we're gonna change things. We're gonna make a difference. Like, not, I don't think quite as vocally as I guess your dad was, because he really is a great speaker. Which I also want to take a second to say that your mom is amazing.
Oh, she's like
and I don't think as many people,
mama bear.
Yeah, I don't think as many people have seen that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she'll listen to this, and like truly, like I've seen it just in the few interactions I've had with her. But anyway, jumping into this, I felt like there was an expectation, and there's also like I'm gonna call it a shadow. That's kind of like, I almost don't want to introduce myself as Melanie Stimble's kid, because they know who she is, and then there's an expectation there. What have you guys found in this? Like, have there been people that were kind of like, I can't believe X, Y, and Z, or why would you do X, Y? Like, what has the shadow covered for you jumping into this realm it's been your parents for so long?
Sure. So that's been an interesting journey. Because like just me being who I am, I'm kind of like, I want to make our own path. Like, we're going to do this. We're not my parents. But so many people know my parents, and it just naturally falls like that. I remember even like when we were doing our pride classes, I would be like calling my dad and telling him how it was going, and he'd be like, oh, who did it? And we'd tell him, so and so. Did you tell them you're my daughter? And I'm like, nope, I didn't, Dad. Like, and we laugh and cut up about that now, but it always comes up. Everybody figures it out eventually. But I think that's actually, in a way, I think it's helped us a lot, because it kind of helps us be able to fight better for our kids, because my parents kind of put the footwork in that a lot. My mom was really known for standing up in the middle of a court hearing and saying, excuse me, judge, I have something to say, and she would say it. And, she's told me, you just need to tell the judge that you need to say something. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then, like, my dad, I'll be like, Dad, I don't know how to navigate this. Call so-and-so. Boom, do this. And, I think that's actually been really beneficial to us to have their history, because it enables us to fight for our kids better, and to get things done. I think it's interesting. We struggle, I would say, in a little bit, just because like we do parent differently. Like, we're not my parents. I'm my dad, but like as a couple, like we have very different personalities, and so we're not them, and so they always offer amazing advice, but sometimes like we don't always follow that to a T. Yeah. And so, and it's interesting, and people, even like family members will be like, oh, are you going to do what your parents did and do it this way? And we're like, no, we're just kind of trying to figure it out and trying to think through it. But your mom and dad did this. And it's like, yeah, but we're not them. So I think it's just been interesting in that way.
I think it's cool that you have the confidence to say that. Like, you're like, yeah, that's great that they did
it's
that.
It's not always the case, but you kind of have to be. Because especially like with our extended family, like, everybody just, and it's been interesting here, like, at our church, like we go to the church that I grew up at and that my dad pastored, and so like, people just think they know how it's going to be, and it's not the case. And they have been amazing, fantastic, such a huge support for us. But it's been a little bit difficult, like not living in my parents' shadow and creating our own family and our own path and our own journey.
So you are saying that there's not going to be a dozen?
We do not plan on having a dozen, no. We were just talking about that the other day, because everybody was asking us, like, do you guys want a big family? And we're like, no, we really don't. So, which, like, we're getting a head start, which is crazy. So, who knows what the future will hold. But we're like, if we keep going at the rate we're going, by the time we're, like, in our early 40s, we'll be, like, empty nesters. So, I mean, that doesn't sound too bad, but...
Mike is over here.
He's like, yeah.
That's funny.
No, so yeah, because I get asked that too. They're like, can I have a big family? And I'm like, I feel like the only thing my parents would ever regret about that huge family is they didn't get to spend as much time with each kid.
I would say the same thing for my family.
That's it. Like, not that they did it, none of those things, just that they weren't able to spend more time. And even though I'm totally blessed with the time that my parents spent with me, and I think all my siblings would agree, but I'm just not sure I want do that.
Yeah,
Similar,
we've had the same conversations.
Because it's just a lot. And then
yeah.
even trying to have a conversation. Like we were talking
yeah.
about this, the noise. Like, it's so loud all the time. And so when you go to the dinner table, you get to have a conversation with like these 3 people.
Yep.
But not the other 9. And that stinks.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. It's super fun because you feel like you're at a party all the time. We always used to say like, oh, the Stimler's here. Like, it's party now. It's doubled in size, whatever it was.
Yep.
But yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about that a lot because like my parents were awesome. I mean, they're freaking superheroes. Like, I still think that to this day. And now doing what we're doing, I think they're superheroes even more. Like,
oh, yeah.
But we were talking about that, like, because we both grew up in bigger families and just how, like, you know, our parents were awesome, but, you know, it's just hard. Like, you don't always get that one-on-one time. You know, things are just crazy and wild all the time. And so, like, that's not necessarily what we think we're going to lean towards, but yeah, we'll see. Who knows?
Who knows what the future
Yeah,
holds.
Exactly.
You're a little like,
Didn't
know
think you were
a
gonna
little
be
bit.
parents.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going
He's
to
like,
be parents 4 months into marriage, so.
I think it's so funny to hear these stories because I grew up, I have 1 brother and then I have 2 children of my own. And so I always find it so, the dynamic shift because I feel like even with 2, that I don't spend enough time with my daughter will be like, Mommy, you know, like, and so we try to take those days and I think that it's just kind of, even if you have 6, you can always make time. And I think, like, good as you guys are like, I feel like my parents spent plenty of time with, you know? So I think it's all in the way that you handle things because I can't imagine growing up in your households. Like, I'm like, the noise right now too is just like deafening. And so I think it's just the dynamic is such a fun dynamic.
I learned to have lots of paused conversations.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll sit in the kitchen and I know that eventually my mother will make her way back around. And so, like, have, 5 minutes, and then she'll go and she has to, turn over laundry and then yell at a kid and then do this, and then she makes her way back, and then we have another 5-minute conversation, but just picking right back up.
For us, it was always learning what you could do with each parent to get your, like, one-on-one time. So, like, my dad would go to just different churches because he liked that to their Saturday night services before preaching on Sunday. And he would always invite us all to go, but nobody would go. So I'd be like, okay, I'll go with you, Dad. And then it's like that one-on-one time, or like Mom's going to the grocery store and nobody wants to go to the grocery store with her. I'll go to the grocery store with you. Like, you just kind of learn how to sneak in, I guess, that one-on-one time.
Absolutely.
I'm like, can I go to the grocery store by myself?
Oh my
I was going to say, I'm sure your parents were also
I bet you feel me.
Yes.
I wanted to.
I think that my husband is like caught on to my game now because I'll be like, listen, it's just so much easier if I can just go to the grocery store.
It'll be quicker.
But then I'm like, he's like, did you enjoy your grocery store trip? I'm like, did I enjoy, like, legitimately, I walked the aisles and bought food for our entire family. So, like, no, it wasn't like I didn't go get my nails done. But I think, like, as you kind of go through parenting, you realize, like, where, like, my strengths are different than my husband's strengths. Like, he can do all day with the kids. He is good, but he hates drop off and pick up from school because they're just like, yeah. And so we've learned to trade off. Like, I get my Saturdays, I get to go do what I need to get done, and I just think that balance is so fun. But I also think that, like, you guys are coming into having now a newborn. Or how's that gonna look when you are homebound again? I always laugh because people are like, oh, you're so homebound with a newborn, and you really are. Like, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. It's just going to be such a fun dynamic. So how do you cope? How do you get away?
I tell Micah I need to get away, or I need to sometimes I just go into my room alone for an hour and I just shut the door and I'll just be like, okay, babe, it's been a bad day, or, things are just crazy. Like, I just need a minute. And he's super awesome and super gracious, and he always gives me that time, to have that. Or like the other night, like, I went out for the first time in forever, thanks COVID, with a friend to get my nails done and to go out to dinner. And I remember, like, is it okay that I go out? Are you okay with that? Like, and he's like, yes, like, you deserve that time. So I think just, like, learning your own needs and, like, your own triggers, and when you're getting overwhelmed, to be able to say, hey, I just need to step away and take a break. And having a spouse that supports you in that is huge. Because then in return, when he's like, I'm really overwhelmed, I'll be like, okay, I got this.
Yeah, I think it's really important to step away sometimes. And
especially
to get that perspective, like, where my husband used to laugh, but, like, I'd get to the grocery store and then I'd be like, are the kids okay? He's like, yo, like, I got this. And it's funny, they have phones at our house that are connected to Wi-Fi, and I always laugh because I wait for, like, the 7 o'clock hour to hit, and my youngest is a mama's boy, and he's Like tonight he was like, what time do you think you'll be home, Mom? And I'm like 9:30. That's past bedtime. So I know the text is coming of like, how far away are you? When are you coming? And so, I just think it's so interesting because I was a lot like you. Like I felt guilty for leaving them with Greg, my husband. And I just think that is something that I think every foster parent needs to know is it's okay to step away, take a breath.
You have to.
Breathe, get away from the crazy for just a little bit and take care of yourself. Because I think as moms, especially sometimes we don't take care of ourselves. I was telling Caleb, like, I haven't eaten today. I still have to drive back to Ocala because I had to clean my house before I came here so that we can make sure, like, I was like, okay, burgers are in the fridge. Here's this, and this. And that's just a mom thing. My husband could handle it. My husband could have run through McDonald's if need be. But, like, that's just how we are as a mom. Yeah. And so I think it's so funny how moms and dads do things. Is there, like, do you guys have a funny mom and dad story? Like, do you have a funny story that you were literally like, I'm up to here, I gotta go? Or, like, something that happened that you weren't expecting? Because I think that's always the best stories.
I think one of the things that I was not expecting, like, the first time we ever went away for the weekend without the kids, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be magical. Like, we're going to be alone and nobody's going to be bothering me. And I remember, like, literally as we were driving to the hotel, I was like, I can't believe we're leaving the kids. Like, do you think they're going to be okay? I think we were leaving them, like, with my family. So they were more than fine. They were probably getting overly spoiled. But I remember being, like, the whole weekend, like, I wish the kids were here. They would like this so much. It would be so fun to have them here. I think we went to, like, Universal or something. And I'd be like, it'd be so fun to have the kids here. Which I'd just been bragging about how excited I was for the weekend away. And then it, like, comes. And I was like, oh, I miss the kids. Like, so, yeah, that would be my story, I guess. Do you have one?
I'm not good with stories.
Okay, I got one for you. So, have you heard of the idea of the nothing box?
No.
Okay, so this is like a marriage idea, but once I explain it, you'll be like, oh, yes.
Okay.
So women, obviously, are like spaghetti, everything's all mixed, and then guys have compartments. Well, they have one compartment that's got nothing in it. And it's intentional, because that's where you go when you just need to check out. And so guys have like a nothing box, so that's why I like the idea of fishing. Like, you're not catching anything, but you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. Or video games or any of those things. What's your nothing box, Micah? Are you a TV junkie, or is it like, what's that checkout time?
One of my biggest ones I don't do as often anymore, I actually like to go just play basketball by myself. That's one of my big ones. I played basketball in high school and a little bit in college, and it was something that, I don't know, it just clears my mind. I put some music in my ears, and I'm good to go for an hour or two. So that's probably one of them. The other one's probably video games or music.
Okay. Yeah, super helpful.
That was a good one. Why can't we have nothing boxes?
We're just too much. We're just too much.
It's funny.
I'm trying to figure out where I find this nothing box now.
Well, it's funny in marriage because, like, ladies don't have them, and so the idea to them is like frustrating. Because you're like, yeah, but what are you thinking about? What are you doing? And you're like, yep, nothing. It's very intentional.
I look at. I think things are making a lot of sense now.
See, it took me a little bit of time to get there too, because I'm very I think constantly. There's a lot of things that is always on my mind, but eventually, especially after getting kids, I realized I need to have a nothing box.
Yeah.
I need to have a time where I can just go do nothing and do something that's pointless. Video games is pointless.
I encourage all the time, especially like guys our age, I'm like, you have to have a hobby. Yeah. It sounds really silly, you're just going to dump money in it, but like, have a hobby, because you have to have that time where you like let yourself like kind of, and it's almost like you're absorbing everything that happened through the day, but you're not really cognizant of any of it, and you're just like, all right, we're just trying to find equilibrium during this time.
I think my nothing box is when I drive to and from work. I feel like I get to listen to podcasts that I can't listen to with the kids in the car.
See, my mind just races. Anytime I'm alone in the car, it's just...
I have learned that I have to take that time for, like, the decompression of... Because mornings are always really crazy. I think mornings and before they go to bed is just pure madness, especially when they start school, like, madness. And so I started back to school at USF last year. I finished up my degree. And that drive to Tampa, back and forth, I had to go twice a week. I thought my husband was going to die. Because those are long days when you drop your kids off, and I wouldn't get home till 11 o'clock at night twice a week. And I found podcasts and, not necessarily like, I mean, I listen to My Favorite Murder. Like, I'm not listening to anything that's like growing me as a person. I'm just like, yo, how y'all figure that out?
Oh, real crime junkie. I'm in the same.
My husband's like, seriously, people are gonna think you're weird if you're driving around listening to murder shows. And I'm like, no, there's gonna be like a whole like cult of people that say sexy, don't get murdered, friend. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah. And so I feel like finding that time where you can like, I don't have a nothing box, but you know, like that's my decompression time, is to be able to say like, okay, I'm not thinking about they're at school, and you know, once they get to like, I feel like 6 and 8 are good. Like I've let go a lot, and like I don't worry as much. I used to worry all day long about my kids, and they laugh at me at work because literally it's like I still have to leave by 2:15 to get my kids on time, and I'm at 2:14. I'm like, I don't care what meeting we're in. I gotta go.
Yeah,
just disappear.
I do. I'm out because again, they come first, and they
Absolutely.
you know, like I think that's I really love your guys' story and your parenting style, because I think it's so. I think watching people parent is awesome, because I think, especially listening to your kids and hearing them out. And my kids, I was late today because we had a meeting, and I'm usually in car line, ready to go. Like I'm the third car in line. I don't like to be the first because I feel like that's like abnormal, and I don't want to be there that early. So I ran late today, and my kids literally were like,
they noticed.
Like, what happened to you? And I'm like, do you know what time it is? You said you'd be here by 3:10. What time is it? 3:08. Okay. I had to call their school and be like, hey, I'm on my way. Hold them, don't send them to aftercare.
So we're getting close to the hour mark, so I just want to kind of conclude with something fun. Both of you, maybe one together, or each of you have a story, but what has been, like, there are rewarding moments in fostering. Like, we talked about a lot of the things that are not so much fun and difficult, but there are those moments where you're just like, everything in you lights up, because you're like, that's why we do this. What has been that moment so far?
Oh goodness!
You asked the really tough questions, just so you know.
I know. You just gotta think about that. The really rewarding moment.
Has there even just been one recently that you were like, oh, this was amazing, or that story that you called your parents to tell them, like, this happened, like it finally happened?
I would say.
I think that's something for me that's kind of like, I think common of any parent, but especially in our case, in the process of adopting, just when either we're out in public or not, my daughter going, "That's my daddy. That's my daddy." That's a big thing for me, because I know that's that way for every parent, but it's I look down in those moments and I'm just like, that's my daughter. Like that's one of the coolest things that I have the privilege of calling my kids, my son and my daughter, and that they're going to be mine. We're going to adopt them, and they're going to be mine forever. I get to raise them. That's super exciting to me, and that's a big win. And also, I think on a lighter note, that's been super cool. Is we just got through fostering a 14-year-old for, what was it?
Like 7 months, something like that.
Yeah, 6 or 7 months, and getting to see her move into her adoptive family's home, and getting to the place where almost finalizing that adoption. That's really cool to me, because I didn't think I was going to be able to foster a 14-year-old at 24. And here she is, ready to be adopted, and she's waited a long time for this. It's super cool to see it finally come through and get close to the finish line. So that's a huge win for me personally.
I would say for me, it's just kind of like what you said. It's just been the transition into becoming mom and dad to them. That's the sweetest and most rewarding thing in the entire world. And now, even as like we're walking through the pregnancy, seeing how excited they are, and like when they see the ultrasound pictures, like, that's my baby, and like they'll talk to my belly, which is just like, it's just the sweetest thing ever, just to see how just becoming mom and dad for them, and just how excited they are to have like a new sibling, and how they talk about how it's gonna be their little baby. And Amara's like, she's gonna sleep in my room, we're gonna be best friends, I'm gonna dress her up and she's gonna play with my unicorns. Like, I think that has just been the sweetest thing in the world, just becoming a family. Like, it's so special, and it's everything to us.
She's convinced it's gonna be a girl.
Yeah.
She may be right. It's a 50-50 shot.
Exactly, that we have no control over.
Are you guys gonna find out before, or
You're gonna wait until?
So we actually already know, but we haven't told. We told my family, and we're telling his family next week. So
we will not spoil the secret.
Exactly, because they would find. Because if his family found out, it would just mess up everything.
Yeah, ruin everything.
Ruin the surprise.
So are you gonna do one of those crazy gender reveal?
No, we just have like confetti cannons that we're gonna pop, and that's it. We're not gonna burn the state down or
Don't
anything.
Yeah.
So.
What a funny, weird thing. It's just
gender. Listen, I found out. So my son is 6. So this tells you how far it's come. The thing then when we found out we were pregnant with Bradley in November. So at Christmas time, and it was literally like, I don't even know how I survived. But my mom wrapped up a stuffed animal in the color of what it was.
Cute.
And I opened it on Christmas Day. Elizabeth actually opened it, my daughter. And I'm like, yeah, I could have done, like, I could have had a plane write this in the sky.
Yeah.
Like, how did I not know this?
Well, it's even so cool now because we didn't think we were going to find out. I'm only 14 weeks, so we didn't think we were going to find out the gender until like 20 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, now they have this blood test where they take, you can do it from 9 to 13 weeks, and they take the baby's DNA from your blood, and they can test to see if there's any, genetic abnormalities, and then they can tell you the gender. So, that's how we're finding out so early, which is just mind-blowing to me that they can do that, because it's just insane.
The difference in magic and science.
Oh, my goodness.
That is nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I was like, this is going to be accurate, right? Like, we're not going to get to 20 weeks and you're going to tell me that it's this. And they're like, no, this is, totally accurate. And I was like, whoa.
I had a friend that was going through ultrasounds when I was pregnant with Elizabeth. My mom, so I lived in Georgia. My mom was like, it's a boy. And I'm like, it's a girl. I had a dream. And I was like, it's a girl. And she's like, nope, it's a boy. I was like, okay, you want to make a bet? So I went. My friend was like, just come in on a Saturday. I can't, 100% confirm, but my teacher can come over and look and go thumbs up or thumbs down. And I'm like, well, this sounds like not going to be fun. And literally within 20 seconds of scanning, I was right where you are, about 14 weeks. And she was like, I see a cheeseburger. And I was like, what does that mean? And she's like, there's a cheeseburger and a turtle. A cheeseburger is a little girl, and a turtle is a little boy. And I was like, these things I didn't know. And so I literally was like, let me up off this table right now. And I called my mom and I was like, cat. And my mom still, because I was supposed to be a boy. And they planned for a boy. Everything was blue. I'm born. And I'm Jessica. So she was like, no, they're wrong. And I was like, Mom, it doesn't work like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This is science.
I can see the baby. So then she was up in Georgia for the ultrasound, and she was like, I guess it is a girl. There she is.
That's what
Mom.
All right. Well, anything else you'd like to finish with?
I don't know.
Thank you guys for being super open and talkative.
Yeah.
Hey, absolutely.
Micah,
Thanks
you
for
were
allowing
calling
us.
a bunch of stories. Don't go hard on yourself. Great with
You
stories.
did, out of all the ones we've done,
Yeah.
I think you rank right up on the top of that list. Just you open and honest, and I think it's important, especially you guys are an anomaly. We don't see a whole lot of 23-year-old, 24-year-old foster parents. Not only that, but I think just talking about your story and sharing how you stepped in. I think that's why I work at Kids Central, is because of someone that stepped in for for kids, and I watch them all the time. And I'm not a foster parent. I don't want to be a foster parent. I love you guys, but I don't think I can hack it. I'm solid where I'm at. But this is, to do that and to be that. I think the selflessness of becoming a foster parent is just astronomical, and I wish more people recognize that, because it's a lot. Watching the trauma has been very hard for me as a non-foster parent. Oh, yeah. So I can't imagine how it feels as a foster parent. So
yeah, and I think it's cool because Micah has just stepped into that role, and you don't always hear a lot of foster dads. It's mostly the moms that are telling the stories, and just to see him take on that role, it's been really cool because he's 100% the leader, and we all just look at him and follow him and hope for the best. So I think I'm proud of him for that, because it's cool to see.
Well, I'm sure a lot of the reasons that you fell in love with him
were
those same things that are now even more pronounced as a dad and a leader of a foster pack.
Which is cool, because I don't think a lot of people get to see that side of him, because he's a quiet dude. He's a humble dude. I'm loud and outspoken and overshadow him in a lot of ways. And so Even like when we were dating and engaged, people are like, Alyssa's gonna eat him alive. And I was like, no, I'm not. And like, now everybody's learning, okay, my guy has a backbone. Like, he's a cool dude.
I think it's a delicate balance when you have an outspoken one, and then it's the same in my marriage. I'm the loud, boisterous, always out there. My husband's like the quiet, silent, like. But my kids know, like, if Dad's voice goes up just this much, you probably should watch out. And so I think it's always interesting to see how those dynamics play out, because my family was like, your husband doesn't have a backbone. I'm like, you just don't see it. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's okay with me. Like, he's my kid's dad, and he's an awesome one. So congratulations on being an awesome dad. Especially when you didn't have to be.
Yeah.